Welcome, Janet, Ingrid, Deborah. Great to see you, Natalie, and Cal with so many L's. I love it. um, and we're really close. I think I'm going to wait another couple minutes, one or two, just to give everybody a chance. I know there's some people RSVP'd that I don't see on yet, but we'll see. Three, so I think we will go ahead and officially begin. Welcome to all. Oh, hi, Lee. Good to see you.
Hi, guys.
You've been vegan as long as like forever almost, right? Or vegetarian?
Before forever, yeah. Vegetarian
forever.
for like 45 years, vegan for the last 15 years.
Yeah, and Ingrid also. So we have a lot of experience, and I know Myra's done that for a long time, so lots of experience out there. Well, I really am excited. I'm Nona Siegel. I'm really excited to invite you all to join us here at this event, which is the second in our series of our Synagogue Vegan Challenge. Is a program that is a part of a grant that we received from Shemayim and Veg Fund to encourage congregations, Jewish congregations, to act on their ethics and advocate and educate the community on the benefits of a plant-based diet, both for the sake of the animals, for the sake of the environment, for the sake of our ethical world, and living an ethical life. So this is the greening of gratitude as we approach the season of so many holidays, but in particular Thanksgiving. And so we wanted to help you. This has been quite a year, certainly with between the pandemic and the raising of, I think, all of our awareness of our cultural injustices and ingrained racism, and just so much going on in raising our consciousness in so many different ways. And so in this year of complexities, we wanted to offer some plant-based options and some things to think about as we approach maybe a way to create some new traditions for this Thanksgiving holiday. And I'm going to ask, if you're not speaking, if you would mute, if you could, just so that you don't have too much transient noise and too much echoes and that kind of things. And then if you feel a great need to speak, I think you can do that. And if you want to put questions in the chat, we'd be happy to deal with them that way too. We will have some time at the end for questions. So we want to offer these plant-based options just in terms of being able to create new traditions and kind of meet some new challenges in our world, and to kind of rethink the foundations of some of our traditions, reflect on our own actions as we go forward. So we are really excited that you're here. We are recording this program, so if you do not want to be recorded, you may certainly mute your face or take your video off. But we want to make sure that it's possible for people who couldn't come to see it, and for maybe Shemayim to also see what we've done today. So we have two speakers today. We have Rabbi Koppell, who's going to give us some words of soulful inspiration around gratitude. And then after that, I'll introduce Maude Posner, our chef, our exciting vegan chef, who's going to teach us lots of interesting and exciting and edgy things. So I will stop talking, let Rabbi Koppell begin.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nona. And we all are indebted to Nona for her leadership and inspiration in bringing this initiative to our community. So thank you so much, Nona. This has really been a wonderful thing for our Temple Chai family to have the opportunity to learn more about such an important topic. Just to review what Nona said, I'm not going to be the mute police, so please take responsibility yourselves. Unmute yourselves when you want to speak. If there's a lot of ambient noise in your environment, it would be respectful to remain muted. We are recording, so if you don't want your comments to be available publicly, then bear that in mind. The chat is very helpful. I see Maude already shared a file in the chat.
Yeah, that's a PDF of all the recipes that I'm going to be going over later in the seminar.
That is great. Thank you so much. And it's good to use the chat for questions and comments, because as more people join the conversation, we may not be able to see everyone's box on the same screen, and therefore it might be more challenging to get Maude and Nona's attention during the Q&A. So as the group expands, the chat feature becomes even more important. Also, if there's, so Ingrid is requesting that you please repost. So what happens is if you join a Zoom, when the chat is already in progress, you don't see what transpired previously. So we may, in a few more minutes, Maude, want to reshare that document so that people who are joining after it was posted will also have access to it. So maybe at the very end.
I think I also sent it through some roundabout way. I just downloaded the PDFs and reposted it, and then I'll share it again at the end.
I think that that should meet the need beautifully. Also, I know people have other things going on. They're shy about their appearance on Zoom, but as much as possible, we would love to see your beautiful faces. So feel free to turn your video on and off as you need to with whatever's going on in your environment, but know that we'd love to see you if we can. So let's talk a little bit about gratitude, which in my mind is the foundation of the Jewish spiritual path. The word for a Jew in Hebrew is Yehudi, which comes from the same root as the word Todah. So Todah is thank you, Yehudi is Jew, or we might more accurately translate Yehudi as a thankful person. That's what it means to be a Jew. It means to be a thankful person. It means to be a person who was walking around with a deep sense of awe and appreciation for the many, many blessings in our lives. When I think about prayer, I think prayer can be of two forms. We have prayers that say, please, and prayers that say, thank you. And what we want to do is ensure that the balance in our own lives is more on the thank you side and less on the please side. And the way our tradition achieves that goal is by requiring of each of us that we say 100 blessings each day as a minimum, which sounds like a lot until you realize that the Amidah has 19 blessings built into it. All of those morning blessings that we say when we're waking up, Asher Natan Lasech V'Vina, Hanoten Laya'if Koach Zokef Kifufim. If these sound familiar to you, that there's a lot of them. Then you throw in a couple of meals and you say a blessing before and after you eat, and it's not so hard to hit the goal of 100 blessings. But I would invite you to think about it not so much in terms of specific blessings as mandated in our liturgy and in our tradition, but more as guidance that the way to a happy life is to walk around with a sense of awe and appreciation for all of the blessings we have. And however you express that, with whatever language, with whatever feeling, the goal is to cultivate that attitude of gratitude. And the blessings as prescribed by our tradition are the vehicle for helping us to get there, but they're only intended as a guide. I said it's the path to happiness. It's interesting to me that our tradition rarely mandates feelings. For the most part, mitzvot, commandments, have to do with actions, not with feelings. And yet right there in the 10 commandments, the 10th and final commandment is not to covet what belongs to another person. That is not to want what other people have, and conversely, to be grateful for and appreciative of what we have. Because if we are just focused on what others have and what we lack, we will never ever be happy, because somebody else is always going to have more than we have. So if we can learn to be appreciative of what we have, it's a much stronger foundation for happiness. And in fact, in Pirkei Avot, we read, Ezehu Ashir Sameach Bechelko. Who is happy? The person who is content with what they have. Rabbi Zelig Pliskin is one of the inspiring authors who has written a lot on the theme of gratitude. In fact, he wrote an entire little book that I highly recommend called Thank You, which is, it's a short book, but only focused on Jewish teachings and perspectives and inspiration about gratitude. And one of the sort of mantras that he includes in that book is, quote, I am a grateful person with a lot to be grateful for. So as a way of reminding ourselves and inspiring ourselves to the vision of the highest self that we want to be, I am a grateful person with a lot to be grateful for. And we wake up in the morning, the first thing we do when we come into consciousness in the morning is we say a prayer called Modeh Ani, Modeh from that same root, Todah, Yehudi, Modeh Ani, Modah Ani, the feminine. I am thankful. So the first thing we're supposed to think about the minute we become aware that, oh, it's another day, we've woken up, is I am thankful. And the prayer continues, what are we thankful for in that moment? That our soul was returned to our body with great faithfulness and kindness by God, not to take that for granted. Every single morning of our lives, there are people who, guess what? Their soul was not returned to their body that morning. So that's something that we don't want to take for granted. And we express that through these words of this beautiful prayer, Modeh Ani, I am grateful. So if you ever get an email from me from my Outlook at home, I have as the tagline in my signature block, another thought from Rabbi Pliskin, who says, what could you be grateful for now if you were grateful for something? And I find that also such a profound and powerful thing to reflect on, because it reminds us that even in difficult times, even in times of challenge and hardship and true suffering, there still are things that we could be grateful for. So Pliskin includes in one of his books, I can't remember which one. Oh, it's a book called Gratitude, Formulas, Stories, and Insights. So this was a Musar exercise to write a gratitude letter to God each morning. For a week was the practice. And this is the letter that was written on the first day. And I think it emphasizes this point. Dear Hashem, right now I am typing this gratitude letter to you on my computer. I thank you for the computer to write this on, and I thank you for the energy to move my fingers to be able to type this. And I thank you for the eyes to see what I am writing. And I thank you for the chair that I am sitting on and the desk that holds the computer. I thank you for the oxygen that you are giving me to be able to breathe, to keep alive. And I am grateful to you for my being alive. I really should have mentioned this first, but I'm writing this to you in the order of my thinking of these ideas. I thank you for my memory that enables me to remember how to spell. This can be taken for granted, but not when one knows how fragile memory can be. I thank you for my being able to hear the sounds that I now hear, and I thank you for enabling me to hear all the words of Torah that I have already heard. I thank you for enabling me to hear the songs and music that have enriched my life. I thank you for my family, and I thank you for my friends. I thank you for the electricity that enables me to be cool when it is hot outside. I thank you for the electricity so I can drink cold water, and I thank you for the water. I thank you for giving me so much for which to be grateful. I pray to you to help me to remember to write you a thank you letter each morning. This way I will be thanking you before I continue benefiting from your kindness throughout the day. Thank you. So I invite you to think about, what could you be grateful for now if you were grateful for something? And in fact, if you'd like to put a note up in the chat, perhaps that can inspire all of us to feel a little bit more gratitude. And I'll just conclude before we turn it over to Maude with yet another teaching from Rabbi Pliskin, who reminds us of the great spiritual benefits of gratitude. Living with gratitude elevates your entire life. You become a more spiritual person. You become a more joyful person. You become a kinder and more compassionate person. You become a calmer and more peaceful person. You become a person who lives in greater harmony with others. So I know that this theme was inspired by the upcoming holiday of Thanksgiving. I would argue that for the Jewish people, every day is Thanksgiving. And I'm grateful for the sun and the cooler temperatures. I'm grateful for Zoom. I'm thankful for 2 healthy, loving children. So beautiful. And I do see that we have moved, at least on my computer, to 2 screens. So please continue to communicate by the chat so we can make sure we don't miss anyone. Thank you all for joining us, and I'll turn it back to Nona for our special guest.
Thanks so much, Rabbi Koppell. I want to introduce Maude Posner. I'm so excited to have Maude joining us. When we started spreading the word about the Vegan Challenge, one of the first messages I got was from Maude's mother saying, my child is a chef and I'd love to have them participate. And Maude has been totally cooperative and excited and very exciting to work with. Maude grew up in the Temple High community. So the exciting thing also is that Maude knows us well, on some level anyway. Maude's been cooking professionally for about 5 years, working their way up from dishwasher to sous chef to chef de cuisine. They worked at Champs, which is a vegan diner in Brooklyn, as a sous chef and as the line lead. And they are self-taught, no culinary school necessary, a self-starter and a self-learner. Working currently at Verdura, which is a vegan restaurant in Phoenix, which has been named one of the best vegan restaurants in our city. And so we're lucky to have Maude back in our world. And they're busy. They are planning the daily specials and coordinating holiday specials. So there is a whole Thanksgiving process that Verdura is doing. So I'm very excited that that we have Maude to join us. And I'd love for you to take it away and teach us many, many exciting things. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. First, thank you, Rabbi, and thank you, Nona, for the awesome introduction. Just to clarify, the best vegan restaurant voted by Phoenix New Times, the best vegan restaurant for 2 years, not one of the best, the best. I only work at the best. Oh, I'm just kidding. So I prepared a little presentation. I'm going to share my screen and get started on this. Let me see how to do this one too. All right. It's like I'm getting outed. You see all my tabs. I just watch anime all the time. All right, here we go. Can you guys see this all right?
Right now we're just seeing you.
Seeing me? Okay, hold on a sec. Pull this out.
Remove your spotlight.
Is this my, okay, share screen. Share computer sound. Share. All
There
right, can you
you
see?
Okay, perfect.
All right. What about that? How's that? Full screen?
Oh, that is very professional.
Awesome. So, Synagogue Vegan Challenge: when ethics extend to cuisine, eating vegan affects the world around us. So personally, I've been vegan for 3 years. I'm not strictly vegan right now, although I only work at vegan restaurants because they're super accepting and appreciative, and very inclusive. There's a lot of toxic masculinity in kitchen environments that I don't necessarily like participating in. A lot of internalized homophobia and transphobia in kitchen environments too. Vegan kitchens, though, have always been really cool because they have this emphasis on sustainability and, you know, just a higher ethics standard. So let's get into it. What is veganism? I got to move the preview of everyone's faces because I can't read it. So veganism is the practice of abstaining from the use of animal products, particularly in diet, and the associated philosophy that rejects the commodity status of animals. Treating animals as something other than a commodity, other than something that serves us. That's the philosophy of being a vegan. And there are distinctions made in there are several different categories of veganism, depending on, there's not like levels, it's just like ways that you can participate in veganism. There's dietary vegans who adhere to a plant-based diet, restricting consumption of animal products, including meat, dairy, eggs, and gelatin. That's kind of the sneaky one that comes up on you. Oh, my cat's playing with some celery. So you'll see gelatin in like gummy bears and stuff. Sour Patch Kids, though, those are vegan, fun fact. And ethical veganism, which is more concerned with the conservation of nature, animals' rights, and restricting the use of animal products or products that have been tested on animals in order to be produced, such as hair products. There's some makeup that use bug pigment, like ground up bug shells to pigment the makeup. Things like that. So abstaining from the use of animals as a commodity and prioritizing sustainability in the world through animal rights and things along those lines. So being aware of our impact and how it affects the planet. Everything we do, every action we do has repercussions, and that goes down to your diet and how you eat, and it affects you and the planet. So 14.5% of global greenhouse emissions is caused by the meat and dairy industry. And that's not just cow farts, even though that is part of it. Cows are a large producer of methane. That also includes the carbon footprint of exporting and delivering of animal products and meat to factory farms, the amount of global emissions towards delivering meat and dairy products worldwide, and also the methane that it makes us produce. Because, you know, cheese makes a lot of people fart. I think that's kind of funny, but we're going to keep going. This is a quote from Alex Hershoff, who is the co-founder of the farm animal rights movement and is a Holocaust survivor. And it says, "I've always been bothered by the idea of hitting a beautiful, living, innocent animal over the head, cutting him up into pieces, then shoving the pieces into my mouth." And he continues on with his experiences with the Nazi Holocaust and says, "To empathize with the conditions of animals in factory farms, auction yards, and slaughterhouses, because he knows firsthand what it's like to be treated like a worthless object." And, you know, there's those videos online that you could watch that are pretty traumatic, seeing the conditions inside these factory farms, inside the chicken farms and the cow farms. But that's something that I'm not going to show you. That's something you could do on your own because it is very traumatic. So let's talk about baby steps towards eating healthier. I probably shouldn't have said healthier. I'm going to say ethically, because veganism sometimes isn't inherently healthy if you're only eating soy products and meat alternatives. But it's more ethical if you're eating a plant-based diet as opposed to eating a meat and dairy omnivorous diet. So here's some easy substitutes that you can make. Milk or cream. I'm not sure if my camera is still on. Yeah, it is. So milk or cream, they're non-dairy substitutes for those. This one's my favorite. I'll show you. This is Oatly. It's an oat milk. It's amazing. It tastes just like milk. Actually, even better. Everything that I've used oat milk in is just so much better. As far as butter, you could use margarine or oil. And for eggs, you could substitute eggs for baking. What's the name of the restaurant where Mom works at? Oh, I work at Verdura in Phoenix. I'll answer some questions at the end as well. I'm going to continue through this presentation. So for baking with eggs, you could use a flaxseed egg, which actually you mix with hot water, and that will act as a binding agent or something along those lines. Or agua fava, which is the liquid in a can of beans, and that has a similar protein structure to an egg. You could use that as a binder. You could even whip it into a meringue. You could use it to help coat like an egg wash or coat something in breadcrumbs. And then cheeses, this is where it gets kind of tricky. I know we stay loving and addicted to cheese. I do personally. So, the case with cheese, the big cheese. Cheese remains really hard to give up, but there are alternatives that you could get at your supermarket. There's so many non-dairy cheeses that you could buy over the counter now. Follow Your Heart does some, Daya does some. There's some more craftier ones that you could get, but it's also not too hard to make something savory, excuse me, and creamy that will substitute the palate effects of cheese. You can make that with cashews that you bring to a boil and then puree with some water and nutritional yeast flakes and apple cider vinegar. But the restaurant that I work at right now, we have a cheese sauce that's based off sunflower seeds and roasted cauliflower, blended with nutritional yeast flakes and apple cider vinegar. And I've tried every vegan cheese. Some of them are pretty good, but nothing beats making something like that yourself at home, having a big pot of it and being able to scoop it into whatever dish you want. So it's come a long way. All these cheeses in these photos are made entirely from plants. None of those have dairy in them. The one on the far left is a blue cheese that someone inoculated with the same type of mold used to ferment a blue cheese. The one in the middle is a cashew-based brie cheese, and the one on the right is a dry-aged Parmesan. So these are all cheeses that are made with nuts, made with plants. No animals were locked in cages, forcibly impregnated, and then so they produce more milk and then milked to the point of exhaustion. Unfortunately, I'm just kidding, fortunately. So let's keep going. Meat substitutes. Meat. So I'm not gonna lie, I have a little bit of a Stockholm syndrome complex with fast food. I love it and I hate it at the same time, but I crave it constantly. So that's one of the hardest parts about living plant-based is that I'm always like, if I drive by a McDonald's or a Burger King, I'm like, ooh, I want a burger right now. There are so many substitutes now for meat that it doesn't make sense to keep eating it because of the effects that it's having on the planet. They're almost indistinguishable. Like on the grill, they make a veggie burger or a vegan burger that has beet protein in it that bleeds the same way hemoglobin does as a burger comes up to a sizzle. It's like beet puree with coconut oil, and the way that it like comes out of the patty, it looks like it's bleeding, like it's cooking like a burger. Seitan, which is on the bottom left, is a wheat meat, usually made with vital wheat gluten. Tempeh is like a soybean loaf that could be used marinated, brined, any way that you'd prepare meat. You could prepare those too, like meat. And then also tofu, which you could do all sorts of things with. Even the more silky tofus you could blend to be more of a cheesy substitute, or the firmer tofus you could dry out, marinate, and soak to be like a meaty substitute. And that's soy rizo on the bottom right. We live in the Southwest. Like you gotta have a substitute for chorizo somewhere. But the substitutes for meat have gone so far and are so accessible that you could get those at Burger King or Del Taco. Burger King has the Impossible Whopper. Del Taco has the Beyond Tacos. Walmart even has substitutes for like any kind of meat substitutes, veggie burgers. And it's like, before you put something in your cart, I say just turn it around and read the ingredients, because a lot of times if you don't recognize a lot of the words on there, you probably don't want that going into your body. But with vegan products, they're usually pretty straightforward with what they have in there. So a lot of people say veganism costs more, and this is kind of like a privileged stance that people who have the time and the privilege to educate themselves on the repercussions of eating meat and dairy are the ones who are usually financially stable enough to benefit themselves by switching over to a vegan diet. And it does cost more if you're getting plant-based substitutes, like the cheeses or the meats or the cashew butter or the non-dairy Ben & Jerry's, which is awesome and I highly recommend. But it's important to remember that while these alternatives exist, maybe to help the transition into a plant-based diet a little easier, they shouldn't be the only thing that you eat. They should just be like parts of a meal. They should be returns to creature comforts kind of sort of thing. But a diverse diet of whole fruits, veggies, and grains prepared whichever way you want will make you feel really healthy. It will make your wallet feel really healthy. Because I've seen the price of veggies at Sprouts, and let me tell you, they're like so cheap. It makes sense to like be eating that and cooking it up. And you could, even roasting like a whole tray of veggies and just keeping that in the fridge to heat up with like a sauce and a grain on the side is just so healthy and cathartic. And then maybe one day a week, you could throw on the vegan chicken tenders or the vegan burger patty, crumble that up, have like a little chaplain steak sort of thing, whatever you want. But you are what you eat. And that is as figurative as it is literal, because your cells are reproduced with whatever you put into your body. I read a thing recently that said humans are mostly made of corn because of how much high fructose corn syrup and corn products and filler there is in most fast food and soda products. So when they looked at breaking down human cells to a molecular level, it was corn. But, you could eat healthier. You could eat veggies, and you could support, if you're doing it, you have to be supporting local and small businesses. Even though there is no ethical consumption under late capitalism, there's always something that is going to be problematic about spending money. We vote with our spending habits. So if you're going out and you're buying veggies, you should try and do it through independent farmers, CSAs, farm stands, farmers markets. Farmers markets are a great way to get produce because you get to talk to the person who pulled the fruit or the veggies out of the ground. You get to figure out what's growing, what's going to be coming next. You get to have that experience, and it's a whole excursion. Eat out at independent restaurants instead of corporate chains. Try and support the local economy and people who would benefit from that. And also vote with your dollars at places that source their ingredients locally and sustainably. Even if you're not making the transition entirely into veganism right away, if you're on an omnivorous diet and you're still eating meat and cheese, but you're buying meat that was raised and slaughtered ethically and locally, or kosher, tying it into Judaism, you're going to be benefiting people closer to you instead of large corporations. If you haven't seen the new Super Size Me, there's a second Super Size Me about the chicken industry, and they're talking about how Big Chicken makes these farms, even though they're all independently run, they're producing chicken for like Kroger or something, and they make them all compete with each other. Whoever gets the biggest chicken gets the biggest payout. And that's just like whack, because they'll weight it to keep them all in checks and balances. So even sometimes when people get big chickens on the chain, they won't be getting paid as much as they should normally. But if you're voting and paying for independent local farmers, wherever you could find that meat, wherever you could find that veggies, you're going to be benefiting people independently. And I think that's always better than big business. So vegan ethics and Thanksgiving, we're going to take a little turn right now, because if we're talking about vegan ethics and animal rights, we have to talk about ethics in Thanksgiving and the historical ethics behind it, the roots of Thanksgiving, what it actually is, and where the holiday came from. So the real Thanksgiving, while we cannot pinpoint one specific or original Thanksgiving celebration, Abe Lincoln made it a holiday in 1863 and convinced it that it was a national day of like giving thanks. The Pilgrims and Indian thing wasn't introduced, or I should say native, weren't introduced into tradition until 1890. And the nation mythos surrounding this holiday does not take into consideration the long and violent history of contact between European settlers, in this case, English pilgrims or Puritans, and indigenous populations that already inhabited the land. So this is a quote from Ashley Nicole McCrae from one of the articles that she wrote. She's a member of the Shawnee tribe and the Oglala Lakota Nation, and also a PhD graduate assistant in the history of science, technology, and medicine at the University of Oklahoma. And she said that The whitewashing and erasure of indigenous histories is not unique to this holiday, but it is perhaps one of the most ironic instances of indigenous mass murder in the service of white European colonial expansion. The idea that we celebrate the notion that indigenous people and the white European occupiers who literally sought their extinction were able to put their differences to the side long enough to sit down and feast upon food in relative peace and harmony is deeply problematic. And going on with the second part of this quote, whitewashing history, revising history, and developing rhetoric that celebrates the creation of a new civic identity for European occupiers, these all contribute to the oppression of indigenous people and tribal communities. The stories like those told by the Indians and Pilgrims at Thanksgiving ingrain a false sense of truth into the mind of the general public. These stories tell that the populace that everything is okay, and in fact, the Indians owe a lot to the Pilgrims. And she talks a lot more in this article about how we had to like tame the savages and make them learn how to dine like us. But at a close examination and orientation with actual history will negate these ideas and enable the public to see how, more importantly, why these stories, Columbus, Thanksgiving, the Boomer Sooner, are told and the way that they are. These stories are extensions of colonialism and are in fact genocidal tactics by erasing and replacing the true stories with those of Thanksgiving. The occupiers continue to remain complicit in genocide. So that's just something that I thought was really important, especially because November is Native American Heritage Month. So this month, it's just important in giving thanks for the local things that you're thankful for in your life. You should also give thanks to or think about ways that you could be an ally. So you got to use your privilege and your platform to speak out regularly against the oppression of natives and create and empower more allies to do the same. Avoid big banks like Wells Fargo and Chase that bankroll environmentally destructive oil and gas developments and also violate Native American treaty rights. Support your public banking efforts and prevent money going to these colossal institutions. Divest. Saviors are not needed. Solidarity is. It's important now also because, I mean, Arizona just went blue, and a large part of that was from the Native population who's being disproportionately affected by COVID-19 and not receiving similar reparations as we are. And even though we're not receiving enough reparations for COVID to stop the spread, it's important to do what we can for the natives in the surrounding area, especially because Arizona has the largest Native population out of anywhere in the US. So I say, if you can, donate to COPE. This is my favorite organization. It's a community outreach and patient empowerment. It's a Native-led human rights organization. Their vision is to eliminate health disparities and improve the well-being of American Indians and Alaska Natives. They believe that the power to overturn longstanding historical health inequalities lies innately in Native communities themselves, and they strive to promote healthy, prosperous, and empowered Native communities through 3 collaborative approaches: robust community-based outreach, local capacity to building a system-level partnership, and increasing access to healthy food. So what I'm doing right now is trying to increase your access and understanding of healthy food and religious injustice, or I'm sorry, racial injustice in America. So now that we talked about the ethics of the holiday, what's for dinner? All the flavors you love. While considering a vegan Thanksgiving, it's important to pay homage to traditions of your family. Everyone wants that stuff on the table. You know, we want the turkey, we want the gravy, we want the stuffing, the cranberry sauce, the dessert pie. All the vegans want that. You know, we grew up with that. It's ingrained in us. Like, we want that food. So it should remain on the table, even if the animals producing them aren't. And it's important to remember that every food that you like, the seasonings and the vegetables are what makes your food taste really good. You don't have to give up flavor in order to pursue a more ethical diet. And I like to use the example of like maybe like a Euro wrap or like a falafel wrap. Like, if you want a Euro wrap, you could make the same thing with, instead of lamb, seitan or tempeh that's marinated in a similar herbal, or rubbed similar with similar herbs, Mediterranean herbs, because it's the tzatziki and the tomatoes and the cucumber combination with that savory element that really in your head triggers the, oh, I'm eating a Euro, this is delicious. And it's all the veggies playing the supportive role that prop up the meat. And a lot of omnivores think that it's the meat and the dairy that take the primary role, but that's misguided. It's the vegetables that give it the flavor. So there are easy way outs on Thanksgiving. These are some photos I took at the store while I was shopping for ingredients. These are all vegan-based holiday roasts. They range anywhere from $10 to $20. I've seen online you could get one for about $70 that looks exactly like a turkey. I think bones included, but that's pretty bonkers, you know, $70 for a vegan turkey. And in the middle is my restaurant, Verdura. There's the plug for their Instagram, Verdura Phoenix. Highly recommend you follow them. You'll see all the dishes as they get posted. They're doing a menu this year. This is different than the menu that I'm doing for this seminar, but they're doing some similarities: a braised Satan turkey cutlet with oyster mushroom gravy, whipped herb potatoes, noble bread sage stuffing. See, I disagree with them on that. I think cornbread makes a better stuffing than a rustic loaf, but that's my personal preference. Lemon garlic asparagus and a pumpkin cashew custard with brown sugary pecans and orange whiskey cranberries. I too put whiskey in my cranberry sauce, but they are a partnership made in heaven. Like, I can't deny that. So you could go to a restaurant like that, a vegan restaurant, and say you have like a vegan son or daughter or non-binary child who wants to have vegan options at dinner. You could get for $25 a whole meal just for them, or for the whole family for about $100, which is 4 people. Yeah, there are options out there. And on the right, these are more plant-based substitutes that you could get. And this is the easy way out. But if you look here, if a little effort is made, there are simple substitutions that you can create healthy plant-based meals without minimizing your food flavor presentation. So this is the full plate of the food that I am going to show you how to make. On the left, we have the turkey cutlets covered in gravy. We got the cranberry sauce, cornbread stuffing, and behind it is, you can't really see, but it's a roasted autumnal root vegetable Jubilee. Behind is my cranberry sauce and my turkey loaf. I actually braised the turkey. I want to show you this. If you look at my camera, I braised the turkey, glazed it, and broiled it. And now it really looks, look at that. It really looks like turkey. And we'll talk about that, go into details about how that was done when I get there. We're almost there. Oh, it tastes so good. I might have to take a break for a second and make myself a plate. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that. All right. So let's start with the simple side. This is a roasted autumn root vegetable dish that I threw together really quickly. And this is a TikTok of me preparing it. So we're making roasted autumnal vegetable Jubilee. I cut up some carrots, Brussels sprouts, rat potatoes, parsnips, and sweet potatoes. Toss them all in olive oil, oregano, rosemary, fresh basil, thyme, salt, and pepper. Put it in the oven at 400 for 35 to 40 minutes till it's tender. So pretty quick, very simple. I literally just cut up all these root veggies, tossed them in a big bowl with oil and seasonings and fresh herbs that I cut up, throw it all on a sheet tray in the oven, 400 degrees for 35 to 40 minutes. And then they're all tender. And when they come out, it's delicious. You could even cook it the day before. And then when time comes, you could cook it again and they'll get a little crispier on the outside. The recipes for all these dishes are included in the PDF files that I will share at the end. Some of the videos I did take a little bit of a liberty while I was cooking it. You know, I get a little fancy schmancy and I'll sprinkle in some special stuff. So let's go a little bit further. The cranberry sauce. So with this, I wanted to do a fresh cranberry sauce. As much as I love this cylindrical, gelatinous, kind of like futuristic, alien slime cranberry jelly, it's awesome. You could spread that on anything. It's beautiful. I wanted to make something fresh, so I did this one with orange juice, bourbon, and Manischewitz to tie it into some Judaism. So let's get it going. Back to Vegan Thanksgiving. Today we're exploring cranberry sauce. What can you do with it? So we're going to take a pot and put it on medium heat, add some water, some orange juice, and then a little bit of brown sugar, and you just want that to dissolve in there. And once that starts to dissolve, I'm gonna put in some fresh blood orange juice, just a good hearty squeeze. Add those cranberries, bring it up to a little to vegan Thanksgiving.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're exploring cranberry sauce, and then a little bit of brown sugar, and you just want that to dissolve in there. And once that starts to dissolve, I'm gonna put in some fresh blood orange juice, just a good hearty squeeze. Add those cranberries, bring it up to a little simmer. I wanted to put a little Manischewitz in there, and I also put a shot of bourbon for good measure. Once it's boiling and most of the cranberries pop, I add apple, some blood orange slices, and a pinch of cinnamon, finishing off with some maple syrup. And you could, of course, adjust it for whatever sweetness tartness ratio you want. I mashed it for consistency, and look at that. Yeah.
So that's the cranberry sauce. I'm seeing, I'm getting chat messages. I know that I'm going in and out. Yeah, we got the Artie Shaw. We got the Artie Shaw in the background of the videos, you know, nothing like a little big band music to set the mood in the kitchen. I like doing that. I like doing the old school reggae stuff in the kitchen too. Just like maybe some Fleetwood Mac, play that in the kitchen, and your cooking is just going to be better. Everything's going to taste better. So
Everyone's just saying how much they love you and are enjoying the presentation. And
okay, cool.
What a great presenter you are.
I'm just nervous that the internet might be cutting out. So I want to say again that I'm going to do a plug for my TikTok at the end of this. All these videos are up on the TikTok. And you could watch them as much as you want, send them to whoever you want, as well as the recipes. Before I added the little finagling and what's the word? Schmutz, not schmutz. I don't know. There's like a, what is it? Schmaltz? No chicken fat in this, Ma. Just whatever finagling I did with the recipes. Like the recipe for this cranberry sauce doesn't show that I added Manischewitz or whiskey in it. That's just my personal preference because I like whiskey and wine. So I added those in there on the fly, and the blood orange as well. But the recipe itself is pretty straightforward, and feel free to get fancy with it, doing whatever you would like. So going into the cornbread. So I made a Southwest style cornbread for the stuffing. I put in green chilies and cayenne into my cornbread, but feel free to not do that if you have a more sensitive palate. This is just how I was feeling. You know, I grew up in the Southwest, like we're surrounded by Mexican culture here. It's important to also use the local ingredients in your dishes. And, you know, being in the desert, we grow great peppers. So we're gonna play this one for the Southwest cornbread.
I am going to show you how to make an all-vegan Thanksgiving dinner. We're starting with the cornbread for the stuffing. So get your oven to 400 degrees, and you're gonna add 1 cup and 2 tablespoons of yellow corn meal. After that, sift in 1 cup and 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour in there. Add a teaspoon both of baking powder and baking soda, followed by half a teaspoon of salt. Any non-dairy milk works. I used oat milk, and then I added 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. That's non-dairy butter that I'm bringing up to a heat on the stove, adding in brown sugar and whisking. I put in some agave syrup there, a couple tablespoons just to hold it over. Then I added the milk mixture that I showed you earlier. You're gonna mix the dry and the wet, and following that, you're gonna add a flaxseed egg, which is just flaxseed in warm water, and whip it together. I wanted to add some textural components, so I put in some fresh corn and some green chilies, and then a little cayenne and a little coriander. Throw that in the oven for about 20 minutes, and then boom, you got yourself a delicious...
I was gonna say a delicious cornbread, but on TikTok you could only make a video up to a minute long. So again, with this one, I was really going with the Southwest kind of style. So I used agave nectar. The recipe, I believe, that I sent calls for maple syrup, but they're substitutable. Also, on the topic of that, I want to talk about vegans and honey, because a lot of vegans think that honey isn't vegan because it's made out of bees, or like bees produce it. But personally, I think honey should be considered vegan because bees are a threatened species right now, and they're also an indicator species. So if bees go extinct, humanity's probably going to follow pretty soon, as they are our best pollinators. They're the reason why flowers bloom. They're the reason why crops grow. And beekeeping, and specifically honey production, is a way to commodify the sustainable use of bees. So I think technically honey should be considered vegan. But a lot of people don't think honey is vegan because it is produced by an animal simply for that reason. But you got to think about it in the bigger picture of this insect might eventually be extinct and we could follow. How can we keep it around? Oh, I don't know, maybe eat what it makes kind of thing. So by commodifying honey, I think we're actually prolonging bees in the environment. But you know, you could always substitute agave nectar, you could substitute maple syrup. I have brown sugar in there too. So yeah, that's the cornbread, and that I made specifically for the stuffing. So I'm going to show you the cornbread stuffing. We utilize that cornbread. I added jalapenos to it. You don't have to add the jalapenos if you don't want to, and your palate's a little bit more sensitive. This one, I have to open it up over here.
If you have to cook for a vegan this Thanksgiving, I got.
Ooh, give it a second.
This is the stuffing. You start with onions and corn in a pot or a wok. Add celery, green chilies, some diced jalapenos, and then some chopped up fresh herbs and garlic. Saute that, bring it all together. Finish with like about 3 cups of veggie chicken stock, and then I staled my cornbread that I made in the earlier episode at room temperature, where you can roast it in a low temp of the oven for a little bit. You want to incorporate it all together before transferring it from the wok to that big pot. Look at it, so good. Cover it in foil and bake it a little bit, then put it back in uncovered, let it bake a little bit more, and then boom, crispy on the top, soft on the inside, a little heat, a little corn, very good. If you have to cook for a vegan.
Okay, so that was the cornbread one. How do I've got to move this over. The cornbread itself came out really good. I said that you stale the cornbread stuffing was one of my favorites. You stale the cornbread beforehand. You could either leave it at room temperature, cubed out, in your kitchen, somewhere high up so your dogs don't get on the counter and eat it, or your cat doesn't knock it over, which mine definitely would, and let it dry out. You want it to almost be like crouton-y. If you don't have the time for that, you could set your oven to like 200 degrees Fahrenheit and put that in there for like 40 minutes until it gets real dry. But by taking the moisture out, you're replacing that with the broth that all the vegetables steep in as you cook them. And you saw when the veggies were in the wok, I was scraping the bottom. You want to get all that stuff that gets on the bottom scraped off, because that's the good stuff. And then mix it all together, put it in the oven, toast it, bring it out. Amazing. Okay, so the turkey. So instead of pulling a loaf from the freezer section and stressing over how to cut around the bones, this seitan loaf will outperform the alternatives. I've worked with seitan a lot. This is something you probably shouldn't say to a religious group. I've worked with Satan a lot. But I worked with seitan a lot in Brooklyn. And also at Verdura, we make seitan chicken that we bread and fry for chicken sandwiches. We make a carne asada style seitan that we put on nachos and in tacos. So this is a turkey style seitan. The things that give it the flavor, those not chicken cubes, which are amazing. There are so many substitutes for chicken broth that don't have chicken in it that taste exactly like chicken broth. People won't even tell. This is not gluten-free. It's basically gluten. It is gluten. This is the opposite of gluten-free. It is full gluten. We also use liquid smoke, which I'll show you what the bottle looks like. Actually, I should have pulled this stuff out beforehand. But these are some of the ingredients that will make it like have that savoriness of a turkey that you roast. So I used light yellow miso. You could also use blonde miso, which is a soybean paste, a fermented soybean paste. This stuff's amazing. Always keep a tub of it in your fridge. And then this is liquid smoke. Liquid smoke is essentially, I think they just take like hickory wood and then take like the smoke on the outside of the chambers that they smoke the hickory wood and dilute it into like a liquid, like a couple drops of that, and it adds so much like barbecue flavor. So this is the turkey one, and I'm going to explain this after we watch it.
What you're looking at is an all vegan turkey breast. Even though there are lots of vegan options for turkey during Thanksgiving, this is how I do it from scratch, and it's all gluten flour based. So you start with tofu, and you add in miso, nutritional yeast paste, tapioca starch, various herbs cut up, this not chicken cube, you put a couple of those in there, some garlic cloves, liquid smoke, sesame oil, MSG, and some water. And you're gonna blend that into a slurry before adding your vital wheat gluten. And you're gonna break that into 4 parts, setting one.
Okay, so you break the vital wheat gluten into 4 parts once you pull it out, and then you take 1/4 of it and you set it aside and you start working the first piece. You roll it into a log, you wrap it into a braid, you tuck it, you just want to build the gluten up. That other 1/4 you put back in the processor with another tablespoon of the vital wheat flour, and that's going to act as the skin of the turkey. So it will show you that.
Aside, that one that you set aside, you blend with a little bit more flour, and you're going to stretch it to be kind of a skin. Put the original one after building up the gluten inside.
So as you can see, I built up the gluten into like a big pizza ball, basically. And then the other piece I stretched out and flattened with a rolling pin, and then kind of wrapped it as if it was a dumpling around the outside. And the reason why you build more gluten on that is it's gonna act as a skin, like as if it's a piece of turkey.
Side of it, flip it over. You're gonna roast this in the oven after spraying it and wrapping it with foil in a bed of broth. And once it comes out in 2 hours, it's gonna look like that. So you baste it with soy sauce and maple syrup and put it in the oven on broil, and then boom, vegan turkey. Yum.
So that, I mean, it looks awesome. That was the second time I was making it, because the first one, the video wouldn't post. So I'm like, oh, I gotta make it again. And it's kind of a long process. After you build up the dough, it takes 2 hours in the oven, and then you want it to rest for 4 hours, or preferably overnight in the fridge, before you pull it out and you glaze it and you put it in the oven. And that's just to give the texture, let the texture kind of solidify to get closer to meat. And this is awesome. When I cut it, I was cutting it into little slivers, serving it with gravy over it. Everyone that came over and had it thought it was delicious. The gravy, I'm just going to tell you how the gravy's made. The recipe is included in the PDF file, but the video would not post, so I'm not sure where it is. But super simple how you make every gravy. You get your vegan butter, or you could use margarine, or you could use oil, and you bring that down, get it warm. You add in flour to create a roux, which is a French cooking technique. And you want to cook the roux a little bit, make sure that it's not raw. I used to work with this Latinx man, and he said, I always would be like, how far do you want me to cook the roux? And he would point at his skin and he'd say, I want it this dark. And I'd be like, I would laugh. But he was a cool guy. I don't usually take it that far. I usually take it to like maybe like a dirty blonde. And then I add in that vegan chicken broth and poultry seasoning and black pepper. And that's the perfect way to make a Thanksgiving gravy. Super simple, super easy, not too sodium rich. Of course, you'll cook it down until you get to the thickness that you want. And once it's at that point, if it stays out at room temp, it will get more thick, but you could always bring it up with more water and that will loosen it. And if it's too loose, just cook it a little longer and it will thicken up. Don't add raw flour into your gravy after you've already done the roux, because it will clump and it will give it a really unfortunate texture. So with all those dishes on the side, let's talk about dessert. So it's super simple to go online and find a way to make a vegan dough or pie crust. And with that, you could stuff it with any veggie Jubilee that you want, cranberries, blueberries, apples, things along those lines. I wanted to do something a little bit different. My mom always makes this like chocolate pudding pie that I'm a big fan of, kind of with like a Manila wafer crust. So I wanted to kind of do a take on that. Plus it's my brother's birthday today. Happy birthday, Ben. I can't believe he's 18. I'm just kidding. He's like 27, maybe. I don't know. One of those. I can't tell the difference anymore. And he loved Reese's as a kid. So I wanted to make a peanut butter and chocolate cream pie. The crust on this, I used Oreos, and the coconut cream that I used to whip is just coconut cream. It's a super simple recipe. So let's give this one a watch.
You make a decadent vegan dessert. I'll show you. You start with Oreos, blitz them up until they're nice and crumbly, and you're gonna add in some melted vegan butter or margarine, whatever you have, and that's gonna be your pie crust. Flatten that out, put it in your freezer to chill, and then this is heavy coconut cream. You can whip that up.
Okay, so the coconut cream, you're gonna wanna chill it in your fridge overnight before you do this. And even the bowl that you're whipping in, you're gonna want it in the freezer, because the colder the things are that you're whipping, the more it will want to form that thick velvety cream to get those peaks and valleys. I had this problem when I worked at Piscicletta in Flagstaff, where we would make our own butter from scratch, a cultured butter. We take heavy cream and put a kefir grain sack in it to ferment in room temperature for a day. Then we'd make it cold and like refrigerate it to stop the fermentation process, pull the kefir sack out, and then you'd have to you'd basically leave it in the freezer until it's super cold and the bowl, and whip it so that it becomes a heavy cream, and then it keeps whipping until it separates the buttermilk and becomes butter and buttermilk instead of just cultured heavy cream. But it won't do that if it's not cold enough. And the first day on prep, I didn't know that you had to refrigerate it beforehand. So I'm there whipping the cream and whipping the cream and whipping the cream for hours. Like it felt like an hour. And I call the chef and I'm like, listen, I can't get this, I can't get this to make butter. And he's like, did you refrigerate it? I'm like, no. So with this coconut cream that you're using in this recipe, you're gonna want to get it as cold as possible without freezing it beforehand. So keep going.
Once you start whipping it, I'm gonna add in some powdered sugar or confectioner sugar, more than a cup. I like it sweet. And then also chunky peanut butter. You can do normal peanut butter if you don't like the texture, and whip that until it's rich, velvety, and delicious. And then you're gonna transfer that out on top of the crust and smooth it on out. Throw that directly into your freezer to chill. And then you're gonna do it again, coconut cream, this time with cocoa powder, a little bit more powdered sugar, and whip that up until it's nice and velvety. You know, you could add more sugar if you want it more sweet. I wanted it more chocolatey. This Hershey syrup is vegan. Make a little Jackson Pollock piece and then pipe that out once it's rich on the pie. Put that in your freezer overnight, chill and enjoy.
So that came out super, super good. I just want to say that yes, Oreos are vegan. Yes, Nutter Butter cookies are also vegan. So you could do it with a Nutter Butter crust if you're feeling really adventurous. And yes, that Hershey syrup is also vegan. So sometimes you'll see things like that you wouldn't expect to be vegan that are actually vegan. And sometimes you'll see things that you expect to be vegan to not be vegan. So always look at the ingredients. So yeah, that was dessert. So in conclusion, the world around us is wild and twisted. Corporations are trying to influence our every decision. The ozone is deteriorating, cultures are being erased, and it's important to stay mindful of the world around you and make personal changes to live a more ethical life. And this starts mentally, but it manifests in everything from the shampoo you buy to what goes on the table to how you address a new person. But you start slowly, and then your repertoire of ethics builds up, and you got to keep that energy. You got to keep that energy building, and your body and the planet will thank you. So here are my personal plugs. That's my Instagram, where I post about art and whatnot. That's my TikTok, where I post about, I have all these videos, but also like a bunch of really goofy comedy videos that I make sometimes for fun. I make music as well. Those are my music plugs. That's my Facebook and my email as well. So all that is accessible for anyone who wants to contact me, see any of my work. I'm currently working on a poetry anthology that will be out probably by the end of the month about my travels across the country. So yeah, thank you so much for watching all the videos, and I'm open for questions now if anyone would like to ask any questions. Yeah, take a picture of it because I'm about to stop sharing. I'll count down from 20.
Thank you so much. I'm so hungry now. My appetite is really stimulated. And
if you live nearby, I could bring you a plate. I have a bunch.
Oh my God, I would love that. I would love that. Let's see. We have a question about, I don't know how long people can stay, but I'm happy to stay. So if you want to ask questions, alternatives to nutritional yeast. If you have a yeast allergy.
Nutritional yeast is just to increase the savoriness in the dish, as well as MSG. There is this stigma around MSG giving headaches. I want you to know that that's false. This is like a whole thing. This was written by, it was like a racist professor who was like, my head hurts sometimes when I eat Chinese food. And then he goes there and he's like, monosodium glutamate. I've never seen that before. MSG is a derivative of kombu, which is a type of seaweed. It's the crystals that form on the outside, and it's basically pure, savory. It's the same way that you could get savory flavor into a dish as you could get salt by adding salt, or sweetness by adding sugar. So MSG by itself does not give you headaches. It doesn't cause other things. This is something written in the 60s by some racist white professor about his like racial stereotypes with Chinese food. And it's been disproven. MSG is used in Cheetos. MSG is used in Takis, like gas station snacks and things like that. A lot of Chinese restaurants say no MSG because they have to put up with this racist notion that's been perpetuated through American culture. So you can leave it out and it will be a little less savory. The recipe that I have included in the PDF will not have MSG in it. I added it personally out of my preference. The miso and the smoke do give it umami. Let me look at these others. Do you ever use umami flavoring or mushroom broth in these? Well, the chicken broth gives it a lot of savoriness, as well as, yeah, the miso, the smoke, the nutritional yeast, and the MSG are what all contribute to the savoriness of the dish. Let's see here. Yeah, if there's any more questions. I'm not sure about alternatives to nutritional yeast. It's very a specific like Parmesan-y flavor that the vegans go for it a lot. Maybe a tamari, but that would be a little bit saltier. Let's see here. Well, regular at Verdura. Oh, regular at Verdura. What do you eat usually? I'm taking a look. Real basic question. TikTok.com. I think so. I'm not sure. It's on the phone usually. Good speaker, amazing database and all. Oh, y'all so sweet. Y'all so sweet. You're gassing me up.
What's the address of Verdura?
Verdura is on the cross streets of 7th Street and Missouri.
Missouri.
So yeah, I'm there Tuesday and Wednesday. Excellent presentation. Thank you so much for recommending Purple Carrot for trying out vegan food in an easy way. Ooh, I'll check that out. Yeah, northeast corner. It's in the same shopping plaza as like a Bash's and a Pita Jungle.
Where Karsh's used to be.
Where
Thank you.
Karsh's used to be. Karsh's Jewish Deli.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And we will make this presentation available on our YouTube channel, the video. And I'm sure that there are lots of people who'd like to have seen it that weren't able to join us today. So we'll really hopefully a lot of people get that opportunity. So
I'm sending the PDF to the chat one last time.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you so much.
So that's there if it's accessible. If you hear from someone and that heard about the presentation who didn't get it, feel free to email me
okay.
at maudeposner@gmail.com, and I'll shoot over those PDFs for you. And all those videos are going to stay up on TikTok unless someone takes them down. But I don't think they seem pretty ethical. But you'd be surprised about the videos that get taken off TikTok sometimes. So.
Well, and we are creating a way to archive resources. So we will put this PDF into that space as soon as we get ourselves sorted out exactly how to do that. So that there will be one place to click and find everything we've talked about. So, yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. Have great holidays, everyone. And our next Synagogue Vegan Challenge event is December 4th. It will involve our excellent challah bakers making vegan challah that then congregants can pick up and taste with the recipe. And so more details will be coming soon. And then on December 6th, there is an event on December 4th is the challah event because that's a Friday. And December 6th is the Hanukkah event, which is the Great Oil Debate with latkes and oil information and recipes and many things. Yeah, there's 2 events. So we're ambitious in December. So thanks so much. And we look forward to you joining us for other things and sharing the information with other people. And I'm really excited to see, Maude, some of your your friends on here. That's great.
Yeah, we got a couple of them popping in and out.
Yeah. So, all right. Any other words anybody'd like to say before we're finished?
Nona, shoot me over your address through email and I'll bring over a plate of food for you.
Oh, I am so excited. I will share with anybody who lives near me. Janet, you can come right over. All right. I'll send it to you. All right. I'll send it on email. Thank you, Rabbi Koppell, so much for
Thanks to both of you so much, and to everyone for joining us. We wish you a Shavua Tov and happy eating.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Thank you.